Family, gather around, because tonight we are diving deep into yet another moment inside the Royal House of Chaos. A moment where the cracks, the deals, the quiet negotiations, and the last-minute rescues behind palace walls tell us everything about how power is shifting, how narratives are being massaged, and how the institution continues playing chess while pretending the board is steady. And trust me, when you peel back the glitter and the gold, you start seeing the truth. The only people who ever walk away untouched are the ones the palace chooses to shield, while others, especially Harry and Meghan, get burned publicly for things they never even did. But let's get into it, because this latest move is about King Charles, Prince Andrew, and Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie. And when I tell you it reveals more about the inner workings of that institution than any press release ever will, whew, buckle your seatbelts. So the story begins with something rare, and I mean rare, within that family. King Charles and Prince Andrew actually agreeing on something. Imagine the tension in that room. Two men who haven't seen eye to eye in years suddenly uniting behind a single goal. And what's that goal? Protecting Beatrice and Eugenie. Protecting them from the consequences of their father's scandals, the palace PR, and the never-ending chaos that has followed Prince Andrew for nearly a decade now. Let's pause right there. Because isn't it interesting, fascinating even, how quickly and quietly they can come together to protect somebody else's children? Yet when it came to Harry's wife and his children, Archie and Lilibet, suddenly the palace couldn't lift a finger, couldn't find a microphone, couldn't release a statement, couldn't call off the dogs. Suddenly they were helpless. Suddenly things were complicated. Suddenly they had protocols. But look at this. When it's Beatrice and Eugenie, everything moves smoothly behind closed doors. No public drama, no briefings, no smearing, no throwing innocent people under the bus. The contrast writes itself. A source told the Daily Mail, of all places, that this agreement to protect the princesses is one of the few things His Majesty and Andrew agree on. And honestly, that line alone says it all. Because you know it must be serious when Charles is willing to put aside everything Andrew dragged their family through just to make sure those girls remain untouched. And again, I say, interesting. Because when the tabloids were running racist attacks, conspiracy theories, and outright lies about Meghan, when she was pregnant, suicidal, unable to get help, protecting her was never a priority. Protecting her children was never a priority. King Charles had nothing but silence then. No urgent meetings, no confidential pacts, no guarantees, no agreements. But now, for Andrew's daughters, suddenly the palace finds a backbone, paperwork and compassion. Anyway, let's move on. This confidential agreement, and notice how these people love secrecy when it benefits them, came right when Andrew finally vacated the Royal Lodge and surrendered his princely status last month. And honestly, that was overdue by about 10 years. But here's the kicker. While Andrew lost the princely title, the agreement made sure that Beatrice and Eugenie's titles stayed exactly where they were. No changes, no reductions, no streamlining, no modernising, no slimming down the monarchy rhetoric applied here. Funny how that works, right? Because when Meghan entered the family, suddenly the monarchy needed slimming. Suddenly the budget was tight. Suddenly titles were dangerous. Suddenly modernising meant excluding the black American woman married to their popular son. But when Andrew's scandals were worldwide headlines, when his associations became international embarrassment, did they slim anything down around him? No, they slimmed down everything around Harry and Meghan instead. Now here's where the deal gets even deeper. Not only did Charles guarantee that Beatrice and Eugenie would keep their titles, he ensured their succession positions remain exactly the same. Beatrice is still 9th in line. Eugenie is still 12th. And Beatrice continues as a Councillor of State, meaning she can literally stand in for the king if he's sick or abroad. Let that sink in. Prince Andrew, the royal who brought on international disgrace, who required the monarchy's biggest crisis management clean-up since the Diana era. His daughter gets a step in for the king. Meanwhile, Harry, the veteran, the working senior royal for a decade, the man who represented the crown in more countries than William, the man who served, the man who actually worked, was stripped the minute he married Meghan. You can't make this up. And the deal doesn't stop there. It gives Beatrice and Eugenie room to take on new roles. And oh, the palace wasted no time. 1 week after the announcement of Andrew losing his honours, guess what happened? Beatrice was named a deputy patron of Outward Bound, taking over directly from her father. Now, let's be real. Outward Bound is an incredible organisation. No shade there. They help young people build resilience, confidence and life skills, and Princess Beatrice genuinely cares about that work. But let's not pretend the timing wasn't strategic. Charles needed to distance the monarchy from Andrew while keeping the York sisters integrated enough to serve the modern monarchy narrative he's pushing. And installing Beatrice in a beloved Philip-associated charity was the perfect, quiet PR cleanse. And of course, Prince Edward steps in as the new royal patron, which is interesting because Edward and Sophie have been used for years now as the safe substitute royals. Whenever the palace needs to distract from scandal or smooth something over without using the future king or queen, they bring in Edward and Sophie. They're like the monarchy's emergency spare tyre. But let's come back to the real point. Beatrice and Eugenie are being ushered forward, gently, smoothly, publicly endorsed. Their father may be finished, but they are not. Charles made sure of it. And again, I ask, where was that energy for Harry? Where was that protective instinct for Meghan and their children? Where were the quiet agreements, the safeguards, the assurances, the "don't punish the children for their father's actions" speeches? The hypocrisy is loud, deafening. Now let's zoom out, because there's another layer. Royal watchers predict the sisters will take on more public roles. And of course they will. Charles needs warm bodies for the monarchy's shrinking workforce. He doesn't want Harry and Meghan back publicly because their popularity, charisma and global reach would overshadow William and Kate instantly. We all know it. The palace knows it. The tabloids know it. So what's the next best option? Bring back Beatrice and Eugenie. Popular enough to be useful, but not powerful enough to outshine the chosen heirs. But the truth is this. Beatrice and Eugenie have always been close to Prince Harry and Meghan. They have defended them quietly. They have not participated in the smear campaigns. They have visited them in the US. They've been photographed together. So Charles knows bringing them forward helps the monarchy, while keeping the bridge to Harry open without admitting it. The palace will never say it aloud, but Beatrice and Eugenie are the last relational link between Harry and the monarchy that hasn't been scorched by William's camp. And speaking of William, notice who wasn't mentioned once. Notice whose opinion didn't matter. Notice who wasn't consulted for this family unity moment. William was completely out of the room, because when it comes to decisions involving Andrew, someone even William can't publicly stand beside, the palace basically sidelines him. And that's another embarrassment the press will never report. Now let's bring this home with the real takeaway. This story is not just about Charles protecting Beatrice and Eugenie. It's about exposing, once again, how easily the palace can act, intervene, negotiate, coordinate, protect, and restructure things when they want to. When it benefits their narrative. When it shields someone they like. When it preserves their preferred image. And that means everything they said about their inability to protect Meghan, their hands being tied, their protocols, their rules, their press independence, all of it was a lie. A convenient lie, a political lie, a PR lie. Because they proved right here, with Beatrice and Eugenie, that when the monarchy wants to protect someone, they absolutely can. They just chose not to protect Meghan. And that is why Harry left. That is why Meghan left. And that is why the Sussexes are thriving. Because they trusted their instincts and removed themselves from an institution that has two sets of rules. One for the favourites and one for the scapegoats. But here's the beautiful part. Meghan and Harry left and still flourished. Without royal titles, without palace backing, without the British press's approval. And that's what still bothers the institution. Because Meghan didn't fall apart. Because Harry didn't come crawling back. Because their children will grow up free, healthy and safe. And not in the toxic chaos we keep seeing unfold year after year. Meanwhile, the monarchy is still having secret family meetings to clean up Andrew's mess. Who really won? I'll let you decide. And as we close out, Royal Sussex Squad family, if you're enjoying these deep dives, this analysis, this truth-telling that the mainstream media refuses to touch, make sure you hit that subscribe button, tap the notification bell, and join the movement. If you want to support the channel, you can also send a super thanks. It really helps keep the lights on and allows us to keep doing the work the tabloids are too scared to do. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting. And thank you for standing with Harry, Meghan, and the truth.